Hello iOS fans!
It's the Agents of Deathgorge.
And in this video we're looking at the new changes to two of our favourite-ish warbands.
No, they're not really, are they?
No.
But it turns out they weren't anybody's favourite-ish warbands, and this is why
they
the
made
changes.
the changes. I think it's a shame actually, because I think the models, certainly the Velmorn models, I think are my favourite, certainly my favourite Death warband.
They're one of the only warbands that we've both painted.
Yeah, because I really like them.
Yeah.
I really like the models. And actually, I'd forgotten how characterful the Grinkrak models were.
There's definitely a kind of labyrinth feel about the Grinkrak models. The one standing on each other's shoulders, the one riding the squigs. They are fantastic models, but both warbands, as they told us in the Meta Watch video, weren't doing well, and they were bringing out an update, and they have.
Exactly, and I think that sort of demonstrated by the fact that I'd forgotten what these models were like. Is how little we've played them, and how little everybody else has played them.
Yeah.
So we have now played a game, which you can go and watch on our Patreon channel, probably by the time this video is out. If not, it'll be out very shortly. What do you think? Do you think the changes make a massive difference?
It's interesting. I mean, one game's hard to go off, but just to let you know what those changes are. Velmorn, they're all about having those command tokens, which enables Velmorn to then support some of his fighters, and they're big on supporting so that they can inspire each other when they get those attacks off and support them. So he now gets a command token in the first activation.
It's the first reaction step.
It's the first reaction step and the first activation step. So he will get that token whether it's you or your opponent. So now it sometimes makes it worthwhile making your opponent go first, because then you can pick up that token and then you can immediately make a charge with somebody else and get that support. So that's the only change to it. Normally it would have to be after his activation that you would get one of those tokens.
Slight sidebar, I really like how they have boosted supports over the course of the game. As the game's evolved, supports are almost irrelevant. You almost didn't.
Season 1 to 3 or 4, whatever it was, is like no one cares about supports, because it rarely happens. That's
partly because they've changed the rules, so they make supports a little bit better. But it's also because the cards interact with them. And I know perhaps it's specifically to this matchup, but the Grinkrak, I played Grinkrak with Fortress, and there's quite a lot of supporting mechanics in there. So it's quite nice that it's become a thing. It means you have to think about where you put your models and where you place and stuff. So that's just my little sidebar there. So I like that.
This does also mean you get that first command counter in that first reaction step, but if you then do activate King Velmorn next straight away, you put them on guard or move on to objective, you'll get a second. So you can start to build them up, and there's a lot of power cards, gambits in their deck, which is like, do this, and if you get rid of a command counter, you get an extra thing. So it enables you to start using those more, whereas it was quite hard to build them up before.
Yeah, that's quite nice, because I found a lot of, certainly when they did those token mechanics early, in the earlier seasons, so a ritual mechanic is a classic. You're kind of like left with, well, do I use it? Because if I use it, it's gone, and it's quite hard to get back. And then you don't really want that, because you want to be able to use them.
Tooting the horn.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be able. Well, that one you had to use.
Yes, exactly.
But you couldn't build those up. But I quite like the fact that you've got that. You have got that ability, because that supporting thing is really quite useful.
Yeah.
And if you then have a choice of like, well, do I have underpowered attacks for the rest of the turn, or do I use Deploy? It's like a difficult choice, but now you haven't got that difficult choice so much.
And seeing as most of the fighters in Velmorn's Warband roll swords, getting those single assists to help a lot of them is absolutely invaluable, because it just really does give them that boost that they need.
It boosts the maths.
It boosts the maths.
That's all Pete and I know.
Yes, maths is better with that.
Yeah.
And then for Grinkraks,
so it used to be that whichever git scored the quest card that you put on them, so you put the quest card on them, and then they would score it, they would inspire. But there was also this way, if you scored a non-quest card, then
he had his dub reaction.
He had his dub reaction, which enabled him to inspire you. And they've just tweaked it slightly, which is if you activate him and he ends up on an objective, or he's on an objective when you activate him, and when you finish activating him, then he can do the dub. So it's kind of like a one extra time that you can dub for free almost.
You could do it multiple times, because you could move on to an objective and inspire someone, and then put them on guard the next turn and inspire someone.
And they have quite a lot of push cards as well.
Yeah.
So you can push him onto an objective and then attack. So you have got multiple opportunities to do stuff, which is quite good, because they do get quite a lot better when they inspire.
And he inspires when 3 others are inspired as well. So that can be the difference between having just 2 fighters inspired at the end of the round, or 4.
Yeah,
and that can be a big
inspiring
difference.
Him is quite important. That's a very good point, actually, Pete. It's a subtle change in the sense. Well, it's only really, maybe probably in most games, 1 extra inspiration in a turn.
Yeah.
But that actually is putting you 1/3 of the way closer to inspiring Grinkrak, which,
himself.
like you say, is a big swing.
And he's nasty when he's
2 to 4.
inspired.
And Grinkrak and the Squig Rider are beasts when they're inspired. So you can always pretty much inspire one of them for free out of the blocks.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is nice.
Is it enough to make those warbands great? Velmorn, I'm not sure. It gives, if you lean heavily into the command mechanic and you take a lot of the cards that rely on it, maybe. But I think the fighters themselves are still very poor, even when inspired. Rolling swords.
Swords is never good.
And
you're rolling 3. You only get up to 3, it's not too bad.
And relying on crits to inspire. Now that's the real crippling thing with Velmorn. I think that whilst you can get a lot more of those command tokens, they don't have any cards that really give you any extra dice. There's a few upgrades that might give you rerolls or things like that, but I think in general they're still crippled by that need to roll crits, and I'm not sure whether this is going to be enough to make them great again. Well, they were never great, but...
And the Grinkrak, I'm not sure either. I mean, obviously it is, like we say, it does help you get the good fighters inspired, which makes them much harder to kill, because some of them go up to, well, I think he stays at 2 shields, but the Squig Rider goes up to 2 dodge. But I think...
But they general, their attack stats and things improve quite a bit as well when they inspire.
They do get quite a lot better, as I think John was talking about, wasn't he? He was saying that basically that they're quite weak, but the offset for that is that they're really strong when they inspire. Yeah. I know in the game we played, I had an inspired Squig Rider, and I was like, well, I just hope you don't go for him first, because then I can pile in and do some mischief.
He could be doing 4 damage when he charges with the right things. So
and they've got some good cards that interact with their other mechanics too. So I've only played 1 game with it. I quite enjoy playing the deck. They're quite a cerebral warband. I'm not sure I would go take them to a tournament. But I'm looking forward to trying to play them again. Whereas I think in previous times we've just thought it's just not worth it.
Never would have taken them.
It's too hard work. I played them with Fearsome Fortress, which I think worked quite well. Of course, having said it's easier to put the feature hexes down, because it is. Tanglebriar, the one card that you could rely on, reliably put one down, is now no use because it's a snare hex, and they're not snare hexes, I can't remember what they're called, but they're
blocked hexes or they're cover hexes.
Exactly, so no snaring going on. So Tanglebriar is a bit of a useless card at the moment, but you can, like I say, because you can kill people more easily, and you can move them around a bit because they melt and come back. There's potential to put them in different places.
If you put blocked hexes down,
It's quite interesting. Yeah.
I do think they'll probably errata it to say actually you can just place a cover hex down instead of a stagger hex, but we'll find out.
Yeah. I don't think they'll errata it. So there's an example. We'll
find
put a pound on it.
Yeah, £1 on the table, boom. We'll see who gets to win that quid.
Yeah.
And I think the main thing for me out of all this, whether it makes these warbands better, whether it gets them played more, for me it's just nice to see GW making those changes. For them to say, we've looked, the stats aren't great, we're going to do something to try and make them better. It kind of reduces that scope creep a bit, or, I mean, these are fairly new warbands and they're rubbish, so obviously scope creep isn't universal, but it shows that they're looking at some of these warbands and going, you know what, they're not doing great, they need a bit of a nudge.
Yeah, I think, and it kind of shows that they aren't just abandoning the product after it's gone. Because I kind of felt that a little bit with Underworld sometimes, like, oh, well, we've made this warband, and we're just going to
fire it off into the ether
just
and
keep
ignore it.
rolling on, and it feels like that when we talked about it before with the very heavy release schedule, with all the core boxes and everything. It feels like it is a bit fire and forget, but this shows it's not quite fire and forget, and they are happy to bring warbands up to try and make them a little bit more competitive.
How quickly they'll come out, because obviously they released the video where they mentioned they were going to do it not that long ago, so this feels like they've made a very quick change, but in reality they could have been working on this change for months and months and months.
Well, these guys are Gnarlwood.
Yeah, I mean Velmorn and Gnarlwood, and I think they were the end of Gnarlwood.
So they're a year old. So
you need some time to work on the stats. So I'm hoping
reasonably quickly. I guess.
It's not too bad, and hopefully we'll see a similar turnaround for other bands where they maybe need a tweak or something, that they'll start to get that attention earlier, which would be nice.
So let us know if you've played with them. Let us know if you've played with them much before and how you found the balance. Whether it's much better. Do like and subscribe and all that stuff, and if you do want to see the extra games, like we say, this one is going to be on Patreon, the one we played with Velmorn versus Grinkrak. Come and join us over there. You get extra games, extra banter, even though I hate that word,
access to the Discord, all that stuff. So we'll see you soon in the Death Gorge.
Bye.